The truth about why married women are the easiest prey. Practical Stoicism for Daily Life. The truth about why married women are the easiest prey. Practical Stoicism for Daily Life. Most people don't set out to wreck their lives. Destruction doesn't come in a single reckless moment. It creeps in, quiet and unnoticed, through a series of seemingly insignificant choices. There's an uncomfortable truth about married women that many men fail to recognize. It's not about weakness or a lack of integrity. It's about human nature's pull toward temptation. No woman wakes up and consciously decides to betray the life she's built. It begins in the subtleties, the friendly banter, the prolonged eye contact, the rush of excitement from a message sent by someone who isn't her husband. One moment leads to another, eroding boundaries, one thought at a time, until she finds herself in a place she never imagined she'd be. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for years. They call it the slow unraveling of self-control, the kind that sneaks up on a person until they can no longer recognize who they've become. But what makes some married women particularly susceptible? And more importantly, how do they justify crossing that line? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. One, the unspoken void, why some married women seek external attention. Marriage, at its core, is a sacred bond built on love, trust, and commitment. But even the strongest unions can fall victim to time, routine, and neglect. While many assume that married women seeking external validation are simply looking for an escape, the truth is far more complex. It's not about physical attraction alone. It's deeply psychological, rooted in a need that goes beyond surface-level desire. The great marriages are partnerships. It can't be a great marriage without being a partnership. Helen Mirren. In the beginning, a marriage is fueled by passion, excitement, and the thrill of discovery. Late-night conversations, stolen glances, and an unshakable sense of being seen make love feel electric. But as the years go by, life becomes predictable. Responsibilities pile up, careers demand attention, children require care, and what was once a deep emotional connection begins to fade into a monotonous routine. The conversations that once explored dreams and ambitions turn into mundane discussions about bills, chores, and schedules. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, she starts to feel invisible. This is where the real danger begins, not in overt unhappiness, but in silent detachment. People will do anything to avoid being lonely, even if it means losing themselves in the process. Mitch Albom. Dr. John Gottman, one of the world's leading relationship psychologists, has long emphasized that the silent killer of marriages is not conflict. It's indifference. When a woman no longer feels appreciated, desired, or even acknowledged by her husband, her subconscious mind begins to crave validation elsewhere. Often she doesn't even realize it's happening. It starts small, a casual compliment from a stranger, an engaging conversation with someone who actually listens, a moment where she feels interesting again. And in that instant, something inside her awakens. That brief moment of being truly noticed becomes intoxicating, almost like oxygen after years of emotional suffocation. This is where practical stoicism for daily life can offer clarity. A stoic man understands that external factors, like a wife's shifting emotions or attention-seeking behavior, are not within his control. What he can control, however, is his awareness, his response, and his role in keeping the emotional fire alive in his marriage. The reality is, marriage provides security and stability, but stability can sometimes be the enemy of excitement. This is where psychology steps in, specifically the Coolidge effect, which states that novelty triggers desire. Both men and women are wired to be drawn to the unknown, to what feels fresh and unpredictable. When a woman has spent years in a marriage that feels stagnant, where every interaction feels scripted, even the smallest spark of something new can feel electrifying, not because she no longer loves her husband, but because she craves the thrill of feeling wanted. We are most alive when we are in love, but love is not just about being together. It's about being chosen again and again. F. Scott Fitzgerald. When a woman feels pursued, when she feels like she has power over a man's desire, it reminds her of a version of herself she thought was long gone. The younger version, the confident version, the one who felt effortlessly attractive. And so, even if she never intends to cross any lines, she might start walking closer to them. Because in those fleeting moments, she feels alive again. 2. The Justification Game. The mind will always find a way to justify what the heart has already decided. Anonymous. No one wakes up one day and says, "I think I'll betray my marriage today." That's not how it works. When a married woman begins engaging in emotionally or physically risky behavior, it doesn't happen all at once. This is the dangerous and slippery path many married women unknowingly step onto. The gradual erosion of boundaries through seemingly harmless justifications. No woman wakes up one morning and consciously decides to betray her marriage. Instead, the descent happens in stages, each step shrouded in a veil of rationalization. What begins as an innocent exchange of attention, a casual conversation, or a comforting connection with another man, soon morphs into a dangerous emotional entanglement. It's just harmless talk, she convinces herself. I deserve to feel appreciated. But these thoughts, subtle as they may seem, mark the first cracks in a marriage's foundation. Guilt, an unbearable weight for the conscience, demands relief. And so, the mind distorts reality to escape that burden. Stoic wisdom warns of this self-imposed blindness. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Yet, in the haze of justification, strength is traded for momentary pleasure. The psychological phenomenon of cognitive dissonance, the tension that arises when one's actions clash with deeply held values, fuels this cycle. To ease this discomfort, the mind reshapes the narrative. She tells herself, "If my husband paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need this." She downplays the gravity of her actions. This isn't cheating, it's just emotional support. She compartmentalizes, "This has nothing to do with my marriage. It's my own private world." But here's the hard truth. Every justification is another step towards the abyss. As Seneca stated, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Yet the suffering here is self-inflicted through the erosion of moral boundaries. The true danger lies in emotional affairs, for they blur lines in ways that physical infidelity does not. With physical betrayal, the boundaries are clear. There is no mistaking what constitutes crossing the line. But emotional intimacy? That is where deception thrives, disguised as harmless connection. Late-night messages, deep conversations that should be shared with a spouse, confiding in another man instead of her husband. These are the warning signs that the emotional bond of the marriage is unraveling. Cheating isn't always a physical act. The moment you start keeping secrets from your partner, you've already crossed the line. Emotional affairs are like smoke before fire. They erode the soul of a relationship before physical betrayal even occurs. A woman who shares her deepest thoughts, struggles, and emotions with another man is already shifting her loyalty, already drifting away from her husband. This is why the Stoics emphasize self-discipline and control over fleeting desires. He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary. Seneca. By the time guilt catches up, the damage has already been done. In modern life, where constant connectivity blurs personal boundaries, the risk of emotional infidelity is higher than ever. Social media, instant messaging, and online friendships make it easy to form close emotional connections outside of marriage, often without realizing the gradual shift happening. The key to preventing this? Awareness and accountability. Practical Stoicism teaches that discipline in thought leads to discipline in action. A marriage built on integrity and mutual respect does not crumble overnight. It erodes through small, unchecked compromises. The Stoic rules of self-control, rational thinking, and commitment to higher virtues offer the strongest defense against these temptations. This applies equally to both partners in a marriage. If you want your relationship to thrive, fortify it with honesty, open communication, and the conscious rejection of justifications that lead down dangerous paths of wisdom ignored. 3. The breaking point. The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. Samuel Johnson. Every story has a point of no return, a moment where there's no more just talking, no more innocent flirting, no more rationalizing. The game is no longer a game. It becomes real. And the scary part? Most women don't even realize when it happens until it's too late. Psychologists call this threshold theory, the idea that the hardest part isn't doing something. It's doing it the first time. The first time she sends a message she knows she shouldn't send. The first time she meets up with him just as friends. The first time she feels his hand linger a little too long, and she doesn't pull away. That's the moment where everything shifts, because after that first time, the second time is easier. What we do repeatedly, we become. Aristotle. And before she knows it, what once felt forbidden starts to feel normal. The biggest lie. I can stop whenever I want. But can they? Not really. Because once something triggers an emotional response, it becomes addictive. Neuroscientists have found that romantic and sexual attraction activate the same brain pathways as drug addiction. The dopamine rush of a new connection feels intoxicating, like a hit of something she didn't even realize she was craving. So even if she tells herself, this is the last time, she'll find a reason to go back. Because at this point, it's no longer about the other man. It's about the feeling she gets when she's with him. The adaptation of deception. At first, lying feels unnatural. The first time she hides a message. The first time she makes an excuse. The first time she feels her heart race when her husband asks, "Who are you texting?" It feels wrong, but the human mind is terrifyingly adaptable. And after a while, the guilt turns into strategy. She gets better at covering her tracks. She compartmentalizes so well that she doesn't even feel guilty anymore. She starts believing her own lies, and this is where things spiral. Because the longer the secret exists, the harder it is to escape. She might tell herself, "I'll end it next week, next month, soon." But weeks turn into months, and by the time she realizes she's trapped in her own web, it's too late. The final shift. When the marriage becomes secondary. When the marriage becomes secondary, a fundamental shift occurs in a woman's mind, one that marks the point of no return. This isn't an impulsive decision, but rather a slow erosion of the bond that once held everything together. The moment she stops seeing her marriage as her primary relationship, everything changes. Her husband, once the cornerstone of her emotional world, becomes the other man. The real passion, the deep connection, the raw intimacy, it's happening elsewhere, often long before any physical betrayal occurs. Her mind and heart are already gone, and when that happens, there are only two possible outcomes. She either gets caught, or she reaches a point where she can no longer live a double life and walks away entirely. This is not about villainizing women, but about understanding the silent, often unnoticed emotional shifts that take place. To grasp this dynamic, you must see beyond the surface and recognize the deep psychological undercurrents at play. People are not driven solely by loyalty or commitment, but by their fundamental desires for connection, admiration, and excitement. The Stoics understood that attachment to external validation leads to suffering. As Epictetus said, if a person gave your body to a stranger, you would be outraged. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who insults you, allowing it to be troubled and confused. This applies here. When a woman mentally disconnects from her marriage, it is often because her husband has, unknowingly, already lost his presence in the relationship. He has become passive, assuming security where there is none. He forgets that attraction is not just about history or obligation, but about the ever-present sense of value, respect, and admiration. In Practical Stoicism for Daily Life, the lesson is clear. You cannot control another person's actions, only your response to them. A man with an iron mind does not plead, does not chase, does not crumble when faced with disloyalty. Instead, he stands firm in his principles, understanding that love, like all things, is subject to change. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." If you find yourself in a situation where your partner has mentally checked out, the Stoic response is not desperation, but reflection. Am I the same man she once admired, or have I become complacent? Have I maintained my purpose, my edge, my sense of direction? Or did I assume that the work ended when the vows were spoken? The truth about why married women can become the easiest prey is simple. Boredom, neglect, and emotional starvation make them vulnerable. Not in the sense of weakness, but in the reality that people crave excitement, validation, and the feeling of being truly seen. The world does not operate on fairness, but on nature, and nature rewards those who stay sharp, adaptable, and present. Stoic principles teach that attachment to illusions leads to suffering, and the biggest illusion in marriage is thinking that the relationship is static, that once won, it needs no further battle. In reality, desire is kept alive through strength, mystery, and self-respect. A man who embodies these traits never begs for loyalty. He commands it through his presence. If you take anything away from this, let it be this. Do not focus on controlling another person's actions. Instead, embody the iron mind, the unwavering presence of a man who remains grounded no matter what storm comes. Stay sharp, stay valuable, stay in control of yourself. And remember, your worth is not dependent on another's loyalty, but on your ability to walk away from anything that no longer serves you. What do you think about this? Have you seen these shifts happen in real life? Share your thoughts in the comments. And that's the truth about why married women can be the easiest prey in certain situations. If this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps get this message out to more men who need to hear it. What do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real discussion. This is about understanding life, not being fooled by it. Stay sharp, stay strong, and as always, keep mastering yourself. See you in the next one.